Hey everyone, it's Emily here, and today it is time for monthly recommendations. It is a group led by Trina over at Between the Chapters and Kayla Rain, and this month's theme is Not Another Love Story. Because, in case you haven't gotten the memo, Valentine's Day is coming up, and as much as I love romance stories, I do. I am a total hopeless romantic, and this topic was actually harder for me than I thought it would be. And I love. I'm not gonna lie. I love romance stories, but it is really nice on occasion to have a book that doesn't totally focus on just the romance, because there's way more to life than just romance, and it's cool when books see that. So my first book is one that I totally did not expect. I read this for the Rainbow-thon this week, and it is Chocolat by Joanne Harris. Now, I've seen the movie, and you see the cover that's inspired by the movie, and so I was like, oh, there's going to be a romance in this book. But I kept on reading it, and I kept on looking for the romance, and it didn't come. Like, kind of a tiny itty-bitty bit at the very end, but it wasn't really a romance or a love story at all. So just ignore Johnny Depp here, and just pretend that she's feeding chocolate to someone, or to herself, or something, because this book is not a romance book. My next recommendation is The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. If you are new to this channel, I'm warning you now, I freaking love The Dresden Files. I've become obsessed with this series. It's so good. I'm not sure how many books there are in it thus far, but I'm on book like 13. So there's a lot of books in this series. And it basically is about this man, Harry Dresden, and he is a wizard in modern day Chicago. And throughout the series, he does date some people, and there is kind of an ongoing thing, will they or won't they type of a thing, but the focus of the series as a whole is not on his love life. It's just about his life as a wizard and trying to be sure that bad things don't happen to the people of Chicago, and it's awesome. And speaking of urban fantasy and the Dresden Files, I'm going to bring up my next book, which is Dead Witch Walking by Kim Harrison. This is the first book in the Hollows series, and it's another urban fantasy. And I bring it up because, again, the cover of this is a little bit deceiving, but I was very pleasantly surprised to find that the first book in this series really didn't have a whole lot of romance. Yeah, they kind of hint at a romance, and I'm sure the rest of the series will have a lot of romance in it, because that's the nature of this series, and I've only read the first one so far. But it's about this witch who starts up her own kind of investigative detective agency along with a vampire and a pixie. And so it's kind of like a girl version of the Dresden Files. And I haven't read the rest of the series yet, but so far, the first book didn't have a whole lot of romance to it, and that was kind of a cool way to introduce the series. Next up is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I've seen a couple people bring up A Darker Shade of Magic and kind of mention this book. But I really wanted to focus on Vicious because I genuinely enjoyed this book more than Darker Shade of Magic, and there really is no romance at all. There's a guy who dates somebody, but trust me, when you read this book, you know it's not a romance by any means. It's just these two college students who experiment on themselves and end up having superpowers. It's this kind of supervillain origin story type of thing, and these crazy group of characters who are just really awful people, and no romance, and it's awesome, which I don't know why I'm repeating no romance over and over again, because that's kind of the point of this whole video. My next book might be stretching it a little bit, but it is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. A lot of times we do tend to focus on the romance side of this book series because we all love Laurie, he's awesome, but when you really read the book and look at the story, the point of it is not who do each of the girls marry. The point of it is the relationship between the four sisters, Jo, Beth, Meg, and Amy. Next up is The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. Now, you could argue in some of these books that there is some romance, that there is some maybe sensuality to it, but the point of the Vampire Chronicles isn't who they fall in love with, but their lives as vampires and the darkness of it and balancing humanity and their vampire self. and just like going through time as a vampire. And so yeah, there are times when you kind of read the books and you're like, okay, they're totally in love with each other, but that's usually not the point of the book. And my final book is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Actually, you could say most of Neil Gaiman's books are not romance. Every once in a while, it kind of hints at it, but it's not romance. But my personal favorite of Neil Gaiman is Neverwhere. I have an entire book talk on this book that I put up for last month. And yeah, it's really not a romance at all. It's more of a coming-of-age story for an adult, and there is a fiance in there, some like a couple you can ship if you really want to, but again, that's not the point. The point is this awesome